Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature, discovering the Pantanal, South America's best wildlife destination, presented by Nat Hab expedition leader Zapa. Zapa, I cannot tell you how happy I am to have you with us today. I will hand things off to you.
Well, Kendall, thank you very much. I'm also very excited to talk about the Pantanal because of the pandemic. It's been a long time since I don't go there, and preparing this webinar and looking through the pictures and made me realize how much I miss that place and how wonderful the Pantanal is. So thank you everybody that's watching for signing up. And the idea today is not a lecture, it's not something very technical, sorry. I just want to give you like an overview on the trip, tell you a bit about the places we visit, what we expected to do, to see. I mean, the Pantanal is, as I called it, the webinar, the best wildlife destination in South America. I've been leading trips there since 2003, a long time. And I usually trips in many other places, but the Pantanal it's amazing. I mean, I hear from many guests that no other place keeps you busy with your camera and your binoculars like the Pantanal, because you see stuff all the time. I mean, the landscape is so different and diverse as you go through the trip, as you go from north to south. That's the way we do. Is really diverse. The things we see, the days we experienced are very different, very different. The animals we see, it's very diverse, and the way the trip was designed was exactly to give you that. I mean, try to give you the most diverse trip, diversity in biomes, by diversity and wildlife, diversity and experiences that you can do a safari, you can do hikes, you can ride boats, speed boats through pristine areas, so you can see the most of it. No other company do the way we do to cover, I mean, the Pantanal the way we do. I mean, doing the extreme north, doing the center, and then flying a charter flight to the south. So let's start it. I just made a little presentation here, the first slide with few animals we see during the trip. The Pantanal is an open area, it's easy to see stuff. Don't think it's like the Amazon where you go. It's beautiful, but it's very hard to see. That's more or less like how the Pantanal looks like. You have water, you have forests, you have rivers, you have lakes, you have savannas. It's very diverse, and we try to cover many different areas to give you more chance of seeing these areas and also seeing the different animals you have in those areas. It is the world's largest wetland, tropical wetland. It's the world's largest flooded grassland. Pantanal is huge. It's located in the heart of Brazil, I mean the center of South America. You fly from the States to São Paulo, starting our overview of the trip. That's a long fly. São Paulo, as you can see, is way down there. I mean, it's not in the center of Brazil, it's more towards the south of Brazil, in the southeast area of Brazil. Oops. And then from São Paulo, we fly to Cuiabá, which is a big town, big city actually, about 1 million people in the Midwest of Brazil. And from there, we start our adventure. This is like a satellite picture of the Pantanal. If you look up north, you can see this very dark green area where the Amazon is. You can see the Pantanal is not actually part of the Amazon. It's a completely different area. It's like as a pre-Andean depression that was formed, like a slope. A little slope is a basin, and this basin, this slightly sloped basin, receives a lot of sediments from rivers around the Pantanal. Now, there are like around 10 to 12 major rivers that flow from outside into the Pantanal, bringing all the sediments and filling this place with sediments. The Pantanal is very flat, really flat. Once we get in the Pantanal, we start a trip, we drive down. It's a bit hilly. Before we get there, once we reach the road, the Transpantaneira is a park road that crosses the Pantanal. From there, we can drive down for about 350, 400 miles crossing the whole Pantanal. You won't have any mountains or anything. It's completely flat. And without these major rivers flowing to the Pantanal, you have just one river that flows the water out, which is the Paraguay River. So try to imagine, a lot of water flowing in, flat, impervious soil because of the sediments, has a lot of clay in the soil. It doesn't absorb the water very well, and just one river responsible to drain the water. So then it floats. It's not the time we go there. We go during the dry season because it's easier to move around. It's easier to see stuff. This is another satellite picture. I just did like with my hand, like I just marked around the Pantanal, sort of the Brazilian Pantanal. So you can see if I do this and this, you can see where the basin is and the mountains around, where everything fills, with sediments and water. It's like a huge delta, flowing through this basin. Is around in miles. It's 140,000 square kilometers, which would be a lot. In miles, it's the same size of Colorado State, to give you more or less idea. And then there's another section that's also in Bolivia and Paraguay. And from Cuiabá, we go down, and that's what we do. That's the area we cover. We cross the whole area from north to south, driving, and then this section here from up to bottom, orange arrows. That's when we fly over. We have the opportunity to see this place from the air, which not many people get to do. It's an amazing experience to be able to fly over the Pantanal as well as part of our trip. Once you get there, this is gonna be our first view. This is the Transpantaneira Road, Transpantaneira Highway. This road crosses the northern Pantanal from the beginning to the center, to the border with the southern Pantanal. Is about 100 miles long. It's all gravel road with 100 miles long with more than 100 bridges. They say that's like 125 bridges. Some are concrete bridges, some are wooden bridges. It's quite an adventure. I mean, it's beautiful, beautiful place to drive. There are some cattle ranches in the area, but it's basically wilderness, wildlife. And the drive is rough because it's a gravel road, but it's amazing to drive through this road and, with all the animals we can see. This is by the road. Of course, sometimes of the year with more water, you have more concentration of birds, more caimans. With less water, you're gonna see maybe more mammals. It's hard to tell the best month to do this or do that because it changes every year. Some years are drier, some years are wetter, some years you have, a very dry August. Some years you have a very wet August. So it's just very hard to predict when we're gonna have the waters and when you're gonna have it very dry. But this is, what we see by the road. This is when you get to the first lodge. This is just by the lodge. It's a beautiful wetland. We have all this you see, all the grass, the plants you see. This is all underwater during the wet season. Right now, this picture was still taken in the dry season. So just the lower part is still with water. There's a little head of a caiman there. I don't know if you can see by the tree shade, the tree shadow, the tree reflection. And around the lodge is, the first lodge we stay at Aras. We do 2 nights. We get there. We're gonna get there in the end of the day because we spend time on the road to see all these animals we have. We're not going anywhere. We're just spending time. As we hit the road, we're gonna spend time. We normally spend like 1 hour and a half, 2 hours before we get to the lodge. So normally 3 hours, 3.5 hours, almost 4 hours sometimes from the airport to the first lodge. Out of 4 hours, 1.5, 2 hours, we stay already in the Pantanal, seeing our first wildlife, kingfishers by the road. I mean, there's a ring kingfisher, green kingfisher, pheasant, tiger herons. This is all by the road. We're gonna see our first capybaras for sure. The world's largest rodent. We're gonna see them by the road. That's a wound made by another capybara, as they fight a lot for territory sometimes. And some cattle tyrants are the little birds you see on the top of them. We're probably gonna see our first jaguar storks by the road. That's a symbol bird of the Pantanal. It's the tallest flying bird we have here in South America. It's about 1.4 meters, 3, 4, almost 5 feet tall. Eating a piranha. Around the lodge, the bird life is amazing. The first morning, we just do a walk around the lodge, and because it's so much to see, because there's no way to get away from the lodge, because everything's around there and everything's new for us. So we just have to stay around, spend time, and see as much as we can around the lodge. The previous one, that's skilly-headed parrot. This is a peach-fronted parakeet. Troupial, orange-backed troupial. That's an amazing bird related to orioles that you have in the US. Also normal to see around the lodge. Curassows, normally when you're having breakfast, you see them around. They like to be around the lodge. It's an open area, and curassows are actually common around there. Very nice for pictures of them. Arasaris, it's a little toucan that we normally see around there too. Beautiful chestnut-eared arasari that goes to the street to eat the seeds. Around the lodge, in the back of the lodge, there's a marsh, a swamp, as you wish. You see wood rails, you see some bitterns, you see a lot of different birds around there. That's a gray-necked wood rail that's normally around the lodge as well. They will see macaws, blue and yellow macaw. There's one that likes to be around. Sometimes it lets you get very close and take pictures. Sayaka tanagers, I mean, many colorful birds just around the lodge. We don't have to go far. We spend around 4 or 5 hours sometimes just moving around the lodge, taking pictures. That's another one of that, the blue and yellow macaw. Vermilion flycatcher, that's a bird, if you're there like in August, he likes to be around the lodge, which is an amazing little creature. Gira cuckoos, even the common ones, those are very common. The gira cuckoos are common, but they're beautiful. I mean, they're common for us. I mean, they're common for the locals, but nothing is common when you are in the Pantanal. Oven birds building their nests. This is called Rufus Tornado. We nicknamed him Oven Bird because he builds the nest like an oven. So we spend this whole time walking around the lodge the first day, just looking at these beautiful creatures. Red Crested Cardinal is the best chance to see them is that first morning around the lodge, because the rest of the trip, they're not very common. That's what I mean about trying to see, different things in different places and trying to see the most. So the areas we cover, get to see different animals. Yellow-billed cardinal, really common everywhere. If you don't take care, be careful, they eat your breakfast at the first lodge. And of course, capybaras in the water. There are lots of them when you get into the lodge. They are really nice, beautiful, beautiful rodents, and they're like very friendly for pictures. They like the pictures taking. And from there, we just do a little walk. We get in the forest. There are different types of forest: cordillera forest, dry forest. This is a dry forest. Of course, this picture was taken during the dry season. Most of the forests, even in the wet season, they're dry. They don't get wet like in the Amazon, for example. In some parts of the Amazon, where the forest gets underwater during the wet season, depending on how the forests are higher enough to be out of the water even during the wet season. Of course, it's much lush during the wet season. You can see the trail. So we do a hike inside of this forest. Beautiful. Listen to the animals, looking for monkeys and different stuff. Numbirds. We can see black-fronted numbirds sometimes walking in the forest if you're lucky. Pygmy owl. It's a ferruginous pygmy owl. It's a really tiny little owl that you find in the forest. Red-bill scythebill is a type of wood creeper that likes to be inside of the dry forest. Trogons, sometimes we get to see the blue-crowned trogon, the color of this guy. I mean, the pictures you've seen, folks, most of them, I will tell that 99% of the pictures you see during this slide are from common animals that you see almost every trip. When it's a rare animal, I'll let you know. But I mean, of course, it's nature. We never know. Nature is nature. But the amount of wildlife we see, it's amazing. Of course, I mean, you see a lot of birds. There are like 500 species of birds. It's a lot more birds than you have of mammals. But then we see mammals too. We see lots of them. Good place to see monkeys in the forest. That's a capuchin monkey. I say a Superman monkey, flying from the tree to somewhere. I hope he makes. And this is a marmoset. It's a black-tailed marmoset that, like araras, the first largest stay. That's probably our only chance to see these little guys, because in the center, in the south, they're not in the south. In the center, they're very, very rare. So we're gonna do that walk in the morning to look for all these animals I showed before, and also try to see this guy. Also moths. Sometimes we get to see moths. They're not very common, but they are in that walk. Jaguars, sort of common in the forest. They're beautiful. They look like giant hummingbirds. And when I say birds, people say birds. But look at the birds you see. Look at the birds you see. I mean, they're all beautiful birds. I mean, we have few LBJs, little brown jobs. Most of them are very colorful. Look at this. Araras lodge, our first lodge. Even the road when you're flying, I mean, when you're driving the first day, we have a chance to see the hyacinth macaws for the first time. The world's biggest parrot. I mean, 3 feet long. I mean, look at this bird. The sound they make, how big they are. See them flying around is something. It's a very amazing experience to be able to see hyacinth macaws in the wild, and I'm going to tell you why in the end of this slideshow. Then in the afternoon, we're going to be in the truck. We're going to drive through the private area of the lodge. We're going to try to see some other stuff, some different vegetation. We're going to be a little far away from the lodge this afternoon. We're going to be looking for parrots, and I'm going to guarantee you're going to take some great shots of them. We go to a place where they have a project where they try to reintroduce blue-fronted parrots in nature, back to nature. But parrots are smart, and they know there's a reintroduction project there. Many parrots like to go there and eat the food they give to the other parrots. You have parrots that were introduced. You have wild parrots that come for like 30 minutes in the end of the day. But sometimes you get there and there's opportunity to take pictures like that. Get to see them really close. On the road, good chance to see the South American ostrich, which is the greater rhea. Look the size of this bird. Amazing to see rheas in the wild. If you're lucky, see a putu. Probably you guys never heard of a putu. It's a great putu. They are close related to nightjars and frogmouths. They just pretend they are part of the tree. It's very hard to find them during the day. This is the only picture I think I have of the putu looking at me, because they just look up and pretend they are a branch. They're very hard to find. Very interesting bird to see. Monk parakeets, lots of them around the lodge. They build nests around there. They're very noisy. I think you have them in some areas of the States. They escaped in the States. They live in Chicago, believe it or not, without the cold weather. But that's the only kind of parakeet we have that doesn't nest in hollows. They build communities, nests with sticks. We have like 20 couples sometimes in the same nest. So very noisy, very nice to see. hyacinth macaws around the lodge. Not rare to see them around there. It's kind of common to see them around. The owner of the lodge, Arara's lodge, planted the trees they like to eat. He even planted the trees where they like to build their nest. It takes around 50, 60, 70 years sometimes for the tree to be big enough so they can build nests. And the owner did it many, many years ago. And in many years ago from now, they're going to be able to build nests around the lodge, which is going to be very nice. And this is the area we visit in the afternoon, the type of area we're going to be driving. That's a very much like a savanna. It's different than the rest of the Pantanal you're going to see in the following days. This is completely unique for the Pantanal. It's very, very much like Africa in some areas where it's very open. You can see far away. That's what I mean when it's easy to see stuff in the Pantanal, because it's open. Sometimes you look and you see very far away, and you are able to find, especially mammals such as like armadillos and other stuff, capybaras if there's water around. And this afternoon we're going to be looking for a lesser anteater, which is rare, but our best chance to find them is when you are at Arara's lodge, in our first lodge. That's a type of anteater, small. They also call southern Tamandua. Beautiful. Sometimes you find it at night, when you drive back at night. Maybe see a jaguar stork flying. This is almost 9 feet of wingspan. That's an amazing, amazing bird. Look at the size of this creature. And it's the symbol bird of the Pantanal because of its size, the size of the nest. It's, we're gonna see that. Coatis, Arara's lodge is good to see coatis, especially if it's very dry. They like when it's dry. They are arboreal. They like the trees. They're born in trees. They build their nests. They're not birds, but it's sort of a nest on the trees, and they stay in the trees if it's wet. But when it's very dry, they like to go down like a group like this to find worms and all different types of stuff to eat. Very cute. They're not coatimundi. They're South American coatis, similar to the coatimundis. Deer, very good to see. We see the great brocket deer, which is this one. Sometimes red brocket deer at Arara's lodge. Marsh deer sometimes. We do have like 4 types of deer we see. Foxes, maybe on the way back from our afternoon, we might see a fox or 2 or 3. I don't know. They're not common there, but we get to see them around our safari. We do a night drive on the way back. We stay out until sunset, and we drive back when it's already night at dusk, looking for those crepuscular creatures, nocturnal creatures, and hopefully get to see this guy. It's the only time I saw the southern Tamandua with the baby. How cute is that? Amazing. And armadillos. Yes, Arara's is very good for armadillos. That's yellow armadillo. Sorry, 9-banded armadillo. Standing up, trying to pick up the smell to see what's around, if it's food, if it's any danger. And raccoons, different than yours, smaller. The crab-eating raccoon. Yeah, they eat crabs, and yes, they are crabs in the Pantanal. So that's a picture of a crab-eating raccoon. Normally, if you see them, it's almost back to the lodge. There are some lakes, ponds by the road. They like to be around there. And if we are very lucky, we got to see the biggest land mammal we have in South America, which is the Brazilian tapir. It looks like a little trunk of an elephant, and it's a very interesting animal that when you're doing the tour, I'll give you all the information about all these animals as we see them, and I hope we're gonna see them all. And then we hit the road the next day. We spend one more night, and early morning we have breakfast and we hit the road. Don't be scared by the shape of the bridge. The wooden bridges are like this. They're made out of ironwood. They're very resistant. I've been driving through these bridges for many years. Never had a problem, and never will, hopefully. So we're just gonna take our bus, and then we have around 4 hours driving down the Transpantanera Road, crossing the whole northern Pantanal all the way to the border with the southern Pantanal. It's not just a drive, it's an experience, being able to drive through the Pantanal. No constructions, no people, no cities, no, just the wilderness, animals on both sides. I mean, being able to see spoonbills by the road. The landscapes, they change all the time. You're gonna have a lot of different landscapes. Uh, you know, egrets and herons, capped heron. The one in the back was a night heron. Caracaras by the road, snowy egret, agoutis. I mean, sometimes they cross the road like a bullet. They're little rodents, really fast. Sometimes you get to see them when you're driving. Great egrets. Depending the time of the year, you can see flocks of wood storks and spoonbills and egrets and herons and all together. Sometimes ducks. There's a section getting close to the next lodge where you get to see southern screamers. Almost every trip we see them there. Southern screamers, very big, like a turkey. And this is just by the road. Has a picture of the many little streams that cross under the bridges. We have, every time you cross a bridge, you have a view like this. You have a stream, you have water, have caimans. Very good chance to see marsh deer on the road as we drive. It's the biggest deer we have down here. And of course, sea capybaras, because they are everywhere and they are cool. Very cute. Look at this baby. Caimans. We're gonna see lots and lots and lots of caimans. I think that's the first picture of a caiman. I have it. You should have more. We see a lot of caimans, lots of them. Capybaras in the water, out of the water, ducks, whistling ducks, Brazilian teal, white-faced whistling duck. And sometimes you get to see the cowboys, the pantaneros, doing their cattle drive in the road, because it's a road that goes through the range. So there's a chance sometimes to see that the pantaneros doing their the cattle driving by the road, on the road sometimes. And then we get to the next lodge, which is in Porto Jofre, which is in the center. I say center, it's not exactly the center, but divides the northern Pantanal and the southern Pantanal, because it's divided between two states. So we normally say center because it is dividing the two states. And this is just by the rooms. Behind the rooms is a huge pond with the water lilies, giant water lilies, royal water lilies, I'm sorry. And then around the rooms, you're gonna have hyacinth macaws, lots of them. You're gonna take pictures of them around. You're gonna have caracaras, lots of caracaras around your room. Buff-necked ibis all around the room, just there for you to take pictures and see. And then we start our adventure. We're gonna have 3 full days and 1 afternoon. That's the afternoon we get there. This drive from the first lodge to the second lodge takes around 4 to 5 hours. Depends on what we see, the road conditions. We eventually get there, and the road is so beautiful that you don't even realize you've been sitting in the bus for 4 5 hours. Then we hit the rivers. I'm gonna look for amazing stuff. The rivers are amazing. The areas we're gonna visit are amazing. There are like 7 major rivers that we can visit, and lots of these rivers are within the state park. There's a state park meeting of the waters, and it's very pristine. I mean, it's one of the few places you go. It's very hard to see garbage. You just see the boats. There are no construction. You can be in a river depending the way you take for 4 hours and just see wildlife and nature, nothing else. And we try to take you to as many different rivers as possible so you can enjoy as much as possible. During our river excursions, you're gonna look for pictures like this, get really close to caimans with their mouth open, really close. There's a little stream we call Caiman Alley. It's really cool. go through Cayman with the boat. See lots of capybaras, lots of them, and this are jaguar food. Both are what jaguars want. If we're lucky, by the rivers, uh, sometimes we get to see anacondas, yellow anacondas. We get to see them. Very good to see monkeys, as we are in the rivers. This is a couple of Paraguayan howlers. You see lots of howlers and capuchins sometimes, and river otters, the giant river otter. It's an animal that everybody wants to see because they're cool. They are rare elsewhere, but in that area they're coming back because of the conservation, because of the state park, because of us, because of people coming to see them. We see them more and more. Once I started doing tours there, we had to go to the Piquete River, to a specific area to try to find them, because that's the place they were. Now they are basically in every river. I'm not saying they're common. I'm just saying the chance of seeing them are very good, very good. And they're just huge, giant. That's why they're named giant otters, because they're really big. Their name, Ariranha, it's like water jaguar. That's how the natives call them. And we spend the afternoon, then the morning, the whole day exploring the river. We come back at sunset every day. We're gonna have this every day, coming back from our excursion. And the rivers we explored are amazing. I used to say there are a few places where you're gonna do tours where you're gonna be in such pristine areas. You're gonna see one boat with other people, and sometimes you drive for 1-2 hours and don't see anybody, just you and the nature. The experience of being in Pantanal and the places we go is unbelievable. Rivers are completely different, from the water is different, the vegetation is different. So that's why we try to take you to all these different areas so you can see this different variety. Kingfishers by the rivers, lots of kingfishers by the rivers. The black-colored hawk, very common by the rivers. Iguanas, it's our last chance to see iguanas, because we won't see iguanas when you go to the south, and they are there. Very good chance you're gonna get good looks of iguanas. And if you are a very lucky group, maybe see a tapir swimming across the rivers. I've seen a few times, not very common. They're mostly nocturnal, but sometimes they cross the river. There's a chance we get to see tapirs there as well. And that's what everybody wants to see. Everybody is looking for, not everybody, but most of people, which is to have this experience, to get to see a jaguar in the wild. And if there's a place where you can see a jaguar in the wild that gives you a chance to see a jaguar in the wild, that's the Pantanal. And we're not there to see them. We're there, the rivers, to see everything. And that's part of our, the animals we see. I don't know how many times I've seen a jaguar, but every time I see one, and especially the first one I see in the tours, it's amazing. It's amazing. Guys, seeing jaguar in the wild, there are reports of jaguar with 320, 330 pounds. Just to give an idea of how big they are, especially in this area where their diet is very rich with capybaras and caimans. So we're gonna see them from the boat, from a safe distance, if we see them, but that's a very good chance we will in different situations. I've just added a few pictures here of the areas we see, how we see. And most of them you can see they are by the water. That's one dragging a caiman. That's the only time I saw one dragging a caiman like that. Not very easy to see a kill. Have to be very lucky. But look at this. You're driving by a river, nobody else, and bam, a jaguar. And don't think they are easy to see. Even a jaguar in the open like that, in a moving boat, they just blend. It's amazing. Sometimes we see one, we spot one in the open. Everybody's looking and say, "Do you see it?" People say, "No, it's right there." Where? There. That's the best way to explain it. It's in the open, and it's hard to see until you see it. And then, but it's amazing to see this animal in the wild. I love this picture. We were watching, and then I saw this brave bird coming. My heart started say, I can't believe it's gonna walk right in the front of the jaguar, and he did. It's as a pale-legged tornado trying to impress a girl for sure. And I mean, even rainy days, sometimes it rains. It's not very common. If it's not a very strong rain, that's we saw this guy climbing up this tree during the rain. Amazing. And you know, by the river, just laying down, chilling. We are part of the landscape. These jaguars were habituated a long time ago, and you know, these jaguars had the cubs, and the cubs had cubs that had cubs, and the boats were there all the time, and the boats were never a problem. The boats were actually part of the area they live. So very rarely they look at you like this one, and look at that light. Sometimes you have the reflection of the river, you know, hitting the jaguars in some little streams. There are encounters that are, you know, you remember forever. And being by the water, golden light, sometimes that's amazing. That's amazing. It is, I mean, days that you'll never forget. Being able to see a jaguar with a cub like that. Oh my God, I miss this. It was a jaguar climbing up the tree. It had just jumped in the water. I missed it. But if you look at the, you know, the back foot, and it's wet. It's just coming back on the same tree, and it didn't jump when we were there waiting. Didn't jump again, but I missed the jump. But it was amazing to see. Only time that happened, and I missed it. Ah, look at this. I mean, just walking by the water, chilling, looking for caimans, even swimming across the river. Sometimes we get to see. That's not very common, but from time to time, you know, going up and down those rivers, and you see something in the water. And there's a jaguar swimming. Jaguars are very water inclined. They just get in the water all the time. They hunt in the water. They don't mind the water. Uh, Different than some other cats, they just love the water, as you can see in this picture. They just go in the water. They don't care. Uh, I don't think there's no crop in this picture. That's how far we were. Safe distance, of course, but we were in a stream, a narrow stream, and this guy decided to walk really close to us. Then, my friends, after spending some days going up and down the rivers, looking for caimans, capybaras, otters, birds, jaguars, trying to find all of this amazing stuff, we fly down. We fly down to the southern part. We have a charter flight. That's Nat Hab exclusive, and we take some nice planes, and you fly down. And if the weather allows, if it's not rainy, if it's not cloudy, if it's not fires somewhere, we are able to see the Pantanal, and it is amazing. It's amazing how beautiful, how vast it is, how big it is, and how far away you look and you see nothing but vegetation. It changes a lot. I mean, you have close forests like this, and then you get to open fields. You can see where it was wet. All these open areas were underwater. It's just drying up right now, and there are some isolated ponds called salinas that's surrounded by forest, and those are permanent lakes. But the views from the plane are beautiful. If you fly over during the blooming time, like the pink trees, it's even prettier. But that's amazing. You can see how the water makes all the you know the waves and stuff, and it's amazing. The different colors, different color of the lakes. And so we fly over the Pantanal for 2 hours, seeing those amazing views. We fly over the world's biggest alluvial fan. Alluvial. Yes, it's a delta. If you look at the satellite, it opens like a fan, and it's huge. I mean, it's amazing how much water you have in one place, and you fly and fly and fly. It's a huge wetland and birds, and so beautiful. And normally you go a little lower there, if we can just see the wetland a little closer. Look at this. It's so diverse, so beautiful. And that's what we see when you get to the ranch, to Cayman Lodge, which is gonna be our last destination. And we land, you see the airstrip in the end of the picture, we land there, and then we're gonna be exploring this area. Look at this bridge, see the bridge? So the first tour I normally do, I take you there to see the sunset. This is a bridge made out of wood. It was built in 1926 as a cattle bridge. And it crosses this beautiful lake, and the sunset there. I mean, sunsets are beautiful everywhere, but sunsets there is just amazing. Then we're gonna have, 3 full days. We're gonna have a truck for us, just for us, and you do safaris plus a hike, and we just hike, we just do a safari, do several stuff. The ranch is around 530 square kilometers. We have a lot to cover and to see a very diverse. I mean, what I love about the last place we stay is like diversity. I mean, that's the first night. We're gonna be looking for these guys. That's a giant anteater, and by far the best chance of seeing these guys are in the southern part, and also this guy, an ocelot. Of course, they are rare. Anteaters are not also not very common, but we work hard try to find them, and also the ocelots. The last tours, last season we did, we were very successful in finding ocelots. Of course, you don't see them every trip; they're not common. But can you imagine seeing this guy in the wild at night, doing our night drives, and of course during the night drives, seeing a tapir. Of course, this picture wasn't at night. We were lucky enough to see this guy during the day like that. Towards the end of the season, it gets a little easier to see tapirs because the mangoes get ripe and they like the mangoes and they come for the mangoes. Cayman Lodge is called Cayman Lodge for a reason. Caymans everywhere and a lot of them. This is one of the places. You probably the only place where you can get pictures like this with the caymans waiting in the rapid with their mouth open, just trying to get stuff. And that's how we do our tours. We drive around. Sometimes we drive for 1-2 hours. We stop and get in the forest and do a hike. Come back in the truck, and then in the afternoon we take the truck and go somewhere else and stay out until it's night. And then we go back at night doing a night drive looking for night creatures, nocturnal animals. And this is during the peak of the dry season. The blooming of these trees, they last for 10 days only. Look at this. Be able to see anteaters even during the day sometimes at Cayman Lodge. The roads are beautiful, open roads, forest roads. I mean, going through the grasslands, going through wetlands. The roads were built higher so we could drive everywhere. Foxes, I can almost guarantee you're gonna see foxes there, crab-eating foxes. Caimans, that's Cayman Island. That's where people put a lot of money. Some Cayman Island, if you need. And the roads are different. They are beautiful. This is leaving the lodge we stay. Have a beautiful drive for us on the way. Sometimes we have little creatures on our road. Capybaras and caimans, they're very good friends. They're always together. As I told you, the roads are elevated. See, it's higher, so even when the fields are flooded, you can still drive through the roads. And again, those trees are Ipe tabebuia trumpet tree, and they bloom for around 10 days a year. So if you ask me when they bloom, I don't know. It goes from June, July. It depends on how much cold, how much rain you have. They bloom in different, times of the year, so it's really hard to tell when they're gonna be blooming. There was a client taking pictures of an anteater during the day, which is not very common. This is one of the lodges we stay, Cayman Lodge. There are 3 lodges in the reserve with a beautiful rain coming. The roads of Cayman Lodge, sometimes you have macaws getting little rocks, sometimes getting even palm nuts on the ground. Together with the cattle, is a cattle ranch, but as you see, the cattle is integrated with everything else. You don't have to clean up areas in the Pantanal if you want to have cattle. The roads higher, There are 2 pampas deer on the left side there. I mean, this is peak of the dry season, very dry. It's amazing for animals. I mean, it's different. You see a lot of animals. That's the same picture of that road I showed you before, but that's the beginning of the rain. I mean, beginning of the rainy season. Very lush. There's a bird, there's a curassow, and then if you watch the recorder later, there's a toucan. I'm gonna have to find it. Where is Waldo? And I mean, peccaries on the road. These are the safaris we do, folks. You're gonna be seeing a lot of different animals and deer and jaguars, sunsets and beautiful places with beautiful lights, and Orias and eaters with beautiful sunsets and afternoons, and it's just an amazing, diverse place. The last place we stay, because of, I mean, how diverse the areas are and how much fast it changes. I mean, peccaries, we see them. That's the Pantanal speed bump. That's very common. Spoonbills flying around. This is the beginning of the rainy season. You can see how different it is right now. Very lush with water in both sides already. So it gives you an idea of the driest and then the beginning of the wet season. This is the peak of the dry season. We drive by those little ponds. Sometimes we even stop there waiting for animals to come and drink some water. It's a beautiful giant anteater. Nice profile that you can see the whole animal drinking water. Armadillos, yellow armadillos, pampas deer. That's the only place where we're gonna see pampas deer isn't when you go to the south. Red and green macaws, best chance to find them is in the south. I mean, tropical screech owl, whistling heron, very good chance in the south, and on ibis. Chachalacas, these are the natural alarm call. Woodpeckers and rheas and pale crested woodpeckers normally seen in our walks in the forest. Lots of parakeets, vultures. I mean, even the vultures are beautiful. It's a yellow-headed vulture. Toucans, very good chance of seeing toucans flying around and even getting close to them. Then you ask me, well, no jaguars in the south? And the answer, yes, there are jaguars in the south. And the experience, if you see them, is completely different. That's a jaguar laying on the road. And the truck you see in the back there is from the project, the On Safari, which is the Jaguar project. Cayman Lodge is working with projects since the beginning. And there are Jaguar projects there for many, many years. They were one of the pioneers working with conservation. And the Jaguar project, the On Safari, works in trying to do what happened in the Porto Jofre area, in the center area, where you see the jaguars from the boats, because they are habituated to the boats. And the southern part, they're trying to do that with, I mean, the cars. Just get there, see the jaguar, wait, and be there, show the jaguar that our presence is not a threat. And they are very successful. Jaguars don't mind people. More and more, it's getting easier and easier to see jaguars at Cayman Lodge, and the experiences are completely different. We were almost under this tree here to see this jaguar, seeing them from the truck. I mean, we're not in a moving boat. Sometimes even easier to take pictures and see them. I mean, it's a whole different experience seeing them in the south. I mean, it's seeing jaguars is an amazing experience everywhere. And then another project that's partnered with WWF that started, with a partnership with WWF, which is the Hyacinth Macaw Project. And this project that started in 1990 was able to bring the Hyacinth macaws from, 1,500 individuals in the wild to being out of the Red Book now. They're not even considered endangered anymore. And the Cayman Lodge has a lot of them because of the project started there. So chance of seeing them, believe me or not, after 8-9 days in the Pantanal, you will see a hyacinth macaw and you say, look, a macaw, and maybe you're not even taking a picture. Hopefully that's gonna happen. Look at the color of this bird, the size of this bird. And sometimes you get really close of them. Parrots, blue-fronted parrots. There's even a project about the blue-fronted parrot at Cayman Lodge because people like to have them as pets because they can talk. So this project started many years ago. before they're becoming endangered, which is the way it should be. Do a project before you have to. And of course, as you're going to be there, it's not just nature. We have to remember that's people living in those areas. And from time to time, as a cattle ranch, we're going to be able to see the pantaneros, which are the cowboys, always carrying their knives, their machete in the back and their ropes. And, you know, if you guys like culture, we can do a little bit of that too. So we can show where you really are, not just showing the animals and everything, but you're going to be able, because sometimes you're driving, you see this. You just get to see the cowboys in their daily work. That's that bridge. Remember I told you there's a cattle bridge, a crossing with the cattle on the top of that bridge. And that's the Pantanal, my friends. Towards the end, I tried to be a little faster because I was talking to for a long time. This is one of my favorite pictures. The way this jaguar is looking at us, the way this picture gets into us, it's amazing. And that's what I think about the Pantanal. The Pantanal gets into your heart. Once you go there, once you get to know the Pantanal, I've been doing trips there for 18 years now. And it's amazing to see the reaction of people when they realize that's so much to see, and they probably never heard about the Pantanal. When you tell people about the Pantanal, people say, "Where is that?" This is starting now. It started some years ago, people talking more and more about the Pantanal, but we still have a long way to go. And sometimes I tell the guests that, I wish that more people come. And they said, "Don't you think it's bad?" I said, "No. I think these animals are here now because people are coming to see them." Once I become a guide in 2003, it took me 11 months to see my first jaguar in the wild. 11 months. I was working every day. I was in the field every day. And 11 months to see a jaguar in the wild. And 7 months later to see my second jaguar in the wild. And now in almost every trip, we take you guys there and get to see one. And that's because people are coming to see them. And when people are there, when you have people coming, you have conservation. And that's why I think tourism is important. We explore very small areas of the Pantanal. Pantanal, as I told you, is huge, and only few areas work with tourism. And I believe if tourism grows and more people come and the word spread around, and then all these ranches that work with cattle, they used to hunt jaguars, they will realize that, if they stop hunting the jaguar, hunting whatever, because people are coming, that's going to bring more money, and then we're going to have conservation working in our favor. And that's why I think tourism is very important. Thank you very much for watching. All the guests, that my past guests slash friends, they're not more guests, they're my friends that have done trips with me in the past, that I receive a lot of messages telling, "Zap, we're gonna watch your webinar." Thank you everybody for watching. And the ones that don't know me, don't know the Pantanal, you should come here. It's an amazing place and you won't regret. I give you my word that it's gonna be one of the best trips of your life. Kendall, you're up.
Thank you so much, Zapa. That was incredible. Just the number of different species you can see on this trip is just outstanding.
Wow, that was like 1%.
I imagine, yeah. Okay, well, before we start the Q&A, I just want to remind everyone who's watching, we're going to take questions for the next 10 minutes or so. So if you have a question for Zapa today, you can submit those in your control panel under the questions field. Okay, you do have a lot of friends watching today, Zapa. A lot of people want to say hi to you, so you have your fan club here. So a lot of people are asking, what is the weather like? How hot does it get? What's the humidity like? And are there any biting insects like mosquitoes?
Okay, it varies a lot, but let's say June and July is normally drier, but is also colder. When I say cold, we might have in June or July, when you leave in the morning for the boat, 32 degrees. Yeah, it's that cold. But then the temperature, as you know, day goes by, it goes uh, to 80, sometimes 85. It gets, very pleasant during the day, but the nights can be very cold, and especially when you leave in the morning, it's very cold. Towards like August, September, the temperature is, September is already very hot. I mean, I'm talking about you can get to 90 in the middle of the day. But then that's like it's colder. It's easier for you to do the tours. But then the animals start moving a little later because they need the heat to move. And then we won't have rain. It's very rare to have rain during our trips because it normally rains after end of September. We might have one shower, two showers, and then October, mid of October, have more and more rain. But the temperature, it's like June, July, it's colder. August will be like in the middle. September getting hot. October it's gonna be the hotter. October in the middle of the day when we are not out there, we come back. It can be 100 degrees, and the humidity starts to raise towards the month of October. But October is great for wildlife because as it's hot, I mean, they move a lot. So it's kind of, I mean, it's hotter, but and then you see more. I mean, dry season, you don't suffer so much with the the temperature, but the animals tend to take a little more to start moving. I'm not saying they don't move. From June to October, it's the time we go. What's the best month to go? It's hard to say because it changes a lot, and we're gonna see basically the same thing in every trip we do. That's why we don't go very early March because it might be raining, and that's why we don't go second half of October, sometimes November, because it might be very hot. I mean, October is very doable. November, December, and then it gets very doable. In terms of mosquitoes, there are some, but it's not bad. The worst time is in the summer. We do in the winter.
Okay, great. So I guess a few people are wondering, based off of what you just told us, when's a good time to visit? And in particular, some people are asking specifically about chances of jaguars and birding.
Any trip is basically the same. I mean, September, it's once they're building nests, so birds tend to be more active. But the Pantanal is a birding paradise. You see birds everywhere all the time, any time of the year. And we do the tours when the water is low. If you look at the picture, this last picture, you can see the river bank. If you don't have river banks, there's no places for jaguars to get close to the water to look for food, for breeze, for water. That's why they like to come close to the water. So we don't go if there are no river banks. And June, July, August, September, October, river banks are there. So it's the same chance.
Mm-hmm. And someone was wondering if we're able to get out of the vehicles during the drives to take photos, or do you have to stay inside the vehicle?
We do. I mean, there are places where we don't. I mean, if you're doing like a drive from point A to point B, we normally don't because we're going to a place where you're going to hike. But if you have a situation where if you get out of the vehicle, it's going to be much better for pictures, yes, we do. I mean, it's not like in Africa where you have lions and stuff, they're going to kill you. Jaguars, they normally don't kill people. We do. We can do it.
Great. And we've got some photographers here. So a lot of people are wondering what the best lenses are to bring. One person in particular is wondering about birding lenses. And do you recommend bringing a tripod?
No tripod. We are mostly in the truck and in the boat, and it's very hard to keep, stay still in those places. If you want to have the tripod to, once you have your downtime, walking around the lodge and take your pictures, no problem. If your tripod is light, no problem bringing it. I use a prime lens. I have like a prime zoom, a prime tele, but I recommend the zoom lens. I have the prime because of the size. I have a Micro Four Thirds system, but sometimes I miss I mean, I want to have it wider. So I would say the 100 to 400 is the perfect lens to have it here, because you get, I mean, sometimes animals are too close and you want to be able to get more, and sometimes you just get the face. And the 100 to 400, 200, 500, a zoom tele lens is the best one to have.
Great. And are there opportunities to do astrophotography?
We do. At least one night, if the weather is good, we stop somewhere when it's very beautiful and can talk about the stars, and and even around the lodge, especially at Cayman Lodge. Cayman Lodge is isolated. I mean, there's no lights around. You just can just go out and put your tripod there, and spend hours there taking pictures, because the sky in the Pantanal, it's amazing. Yes.
And how physically demanding is this trip? Would someone with mobility issues be able to do it?
Yes, we do some hikes. As I told you, Pantanal is flat. It's very flat. There are no uphills or downhills. The walks are not very long. It's a very easy trip. I mean, it depends of the group. I try to see more or less how the group is, and I do more or do less. But we normally do, I mean, safaris. We stay in the boat. Like when you go to the center, it's on the boat. Arara's Lodge, we do some hikes around. When you go to Cayman, we do some hikes around. But the Pantanal is so big, if you just walk, we don't see much. So we need the truck to take us, further, and then we walk. But yes, I mean, if you're not very active, you can do the trip, no problem.
Great. And does this trip pay any attention to the flora, or is it mostly all about the fauna?
I love the flora. I love the flora. I don't have pictures here. I mean, I was just looking through the pictures, and I have a lot of pictures. Actually, every flower I see, I take a picture. So I love the flora. If you do like the flora, you want to come. I know quite a bit, and it's really nice. It's really nice. I would come when it's a bit more wet. I would come more in the beginning of the season, because it's not so dry. It's cold, but it's still a little lush, so you see more flowers.
Great. And so last question I'll take today. A couple people were wondering if, and I don't mean to put you on the spot here, if you can provide some names of field guides or natural history books of the region.
Field guides, I love this one. This is about birds. This is called Birds of Brazil, Pantanal and Cerrado. It's by Wildlife Conservation Society. I think you can get this on Amazon. And this is a very generic one, but it has a lot of information about the mammals, the amphibians, the reptiles, and everything. It's called Pantanal Wildlife, a visitor's guide. It's actually very good. It covers a lot, gives you a lot of information. I have so many books around me right now. My books. And there's this one here, also for birds. It's called Birds of the Pantanal. It is basically just the pictures and the names. The information is in Portuguese, but the names are in English, and it's an excellent field guide for identification. And I like the size. It's small.
All right, great. Well, thank you so much, Zapa. It really was such a pleasure to have you join us today. I'm going to hand it back over to you for any closing comments you'd like to make.
Well, Kendall, thank you. It's always a great opportunity for us to share. I mean, to tell people about the place we love, and I hope that all these people that watched today will come, and hope to see you guys, get to know you guys, and show you around. I mean, I love this place, and I'm sure after doing this trip with me, you're gonna love it too, because the Pantanal is a magical place, and again, it's the best wildlife destination we have here, and you won't regret. You won't regret. So Nat Hab does the best trip down here, no question. So if you're wondering, if you want to come, you should do it. And not just me, we have a team of expedition leaders here that are amazing. We are all good friends. We all love what we do, and we're gonna love to take you guys around and show you. As I said, the pictures I show you here are just like a little amount of what we can see in one trip. It's sometimes even overwhelming with the amount of stuff we have to see. So come, we are waiting for you guys.
Thank you so much, Zapa. Your passion for this area is very clear. So thank you so much for showing us all your beautiful photos today.
Thank you very much.
I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in. Just a note for our audience, we will not have a webinar on Monday. Our presenter had something come up last minute, so be sure to join us on Tuesday for our next Daily Dose of Nature. We have next week's lineup on our website now, and of course, keep an eye out for our Sunday e-news announcement. We did record today's presentation, and we'll have the replay available on our website soon. And with that, I'll conclude the webinar. Goodbye, everybody. Have a great weekend. Thanks again, Zapa.
Ciao.